Okay. So let me start off by asking you, how did you get into running? When did you first start?
I started at age 40 in December of 2003, and it was like something designed by the universe. It was not on my bucket list to be a runner. I wasn't an athlete in school, but I lost a friend to leukemia the summer before, and I really, really wanted to do something to honor his memory that was an office work, since I work in an office. And I wanted something unique to do, and a coworker of mine was running with Team in Training. I gave her a donation in memory of my friend and started asking her questions about Team in Training, like, okay, do you have to be an athlete to run? Do you have to experience? How old are these people? And she answered my questions. I signed up for an info meeting, chickened out. And then like 2 months later, it was October of 2003. And I went back to the Team in Training website and saw that they're going to Rome, Italy. And I was like, oh my gosh, Philip was Italian. He'd always wanted to go to Italy. He never got the chance. What a better way to honor his life, but to do something he couldn't do. So I signed up for a marathon.
Wow. So your first race was a marathon in Rome.
It was. Now, I wouldn't recommend that, but in my case, it worked out because I had no idea what I was getting into. It was like ignorance was bliss. And I thought, well, I can do the fundraising. I can go to Rome with the team. I'll go sightseeing. They can run the marathon, and I'll meet them at the finish line. And before I knew it, I was actually running and actually enjoying it.
Wow. And what has kept you going? And you've been involved in Team in Training. What are some of the things that have, from that first race, kept you into running?
I think there were maybe three key things. And one was I developed a passion for the sport. And I was like, wow, I never knew I could run. The marathon used to come right past my door, the Chicago Marathon, and I would go out and cheer on the runners. And I would say to myself, there is nothing in the world that could get me to run 26 miles. So I had found the reason behind why people do it. And I developed a love for running. It gave me the chance to look in the mirror at myself and say, I'm proud of you, which I had never done. Mm-hmm. And also, it's the love of the team. I met some great people, and they're lifetime friends. Mm-hmm. Whether I met them 16 years ago or whether I'm just meeting them on this year's team, they're like-minded people who want to make the world a better place, definitely. And the third reason is keeping me young. I've been able to become a coach and share that passion, and that pretty much just sums it up.
And how did you become a coach? Was that something that you wanted to do, or were you approached, or how did that happen?
That happened behind my back, actually. I'm more of an introvert, so I will be a leader when I'm thrown into leadership positions. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that I'm a follower, but I prefer not to actually lead a group if I can avoid it. And Donna Wren, who's one of the longtime team members, a coach also, and now one of my favorite running buddies, she went to Marie Gerald, who was the head coach at the time, and said, I think Patrice would make a good coach. And see, I didn't know this was going on. So one day out of the blue, I get a call from Marie saying, oh, well, we think you'd make a really good coach. What do you think? And I'm like, but when I get in front of people, I trip over my tongue. I forget what I'm going to say. I'm a little on the shy side. And she goes, we can work with that. Just give me a call back. And so I thought about it and thought, you got to push yourself sometimes into a place that's not your comfort zone. And I thought, I was a supervisor when I worked out at Wrigley Field. I actually enjoyed that position and working with the employees and sharing a passion for baseball. So I thought, well, let's give this a try. And I went through the interview process and found out that I really found my niche. Mm-hmm. Sharing the love of running and just watching people go from where I was, ground zero, into an athlete. And meeting their goals and getting across that finish line is so rewarding.
Yeah.
No regrets.
What do you say when you see a runner who's struggling, who's maybe thinking, this bad run is their whole universe right now. And maybe they're thinking that they can't do this. How do you approach that? What do you say to them?
Well, first I run along with them for a little bit, and then I ask them, who is waiting for you on the other side of that finish line that's going to make you want to finish? And I've actually had runners stop and think about that. If they're doing it for a cause, it's usually that person that they're honoring, or that person that they're lost, or maybe they themselves have come through something that's so traumatic and they're now doing this endurance events, and that kind of changes their thinking. One of my favorite experiences with that was a runner from the West Coast who, when I was out coaching during the marathon, she was in tears. She was an older person, probably in her 30s, and she just had it. She was at mile 18. She wasn't going to go any further, and I asked her if she'd ever had calculus, which is a crazy question for somebody who was more book oriented and reading. I'm not a math person by any stretch of the imagination. And she said, yeah, why? And I said, well, if you knock an 8 on its side, it becomes the infinity symbol. And you can run forever. I said, you have 8 more miles. And I don't know where that came from. It just came out of my mouth. And she had stopped crying at that point, and I was running along with her for a little bit, and then she went off. And then later I found out that actually changed her thinking, and she was able to finish. So some of it's luck. A lot of it is maybe knowing the runner and what will motivate them in advance to get them across the finish line. Sometimes it's just knowing that there's somebody there who believes in you. Yep. And just giving them that confidence. Hey, you made it through 20 miles. You've got 6 more miles to go. Easy peasy.
Nice. So how has the pandemic changed your personal running routine?
Well, I'm working from home, so I wouldn't do morning runs. One, it was a safety feature, or a safety issue rather, to get up really early and run. Plus, I like to get to work early to avoid crowds on the L. It's an introvert thing. So I would get downtown way before I needed to be, and I would have a cup of coffee, and then I'd go up for work. So when I started working from home, I'm like, my commute's from the bedroom to the living room. So I would get up at the same time I would get up had it been a normal day and I was commuting downtown, and I would go out for runs. So I reestablished those morning running routines. And I can't say that I've gotten up and done them all. There are some where I'm just like, I'm not doing it this morning. And I don't, but the ones that I have done, I've captured sunrises, I've captured different images of flowers, the changing of the seasons, the empty streets, it kind of gave me a perspective on the virus itself. And it gave me something to look forward to, something that wasn't canceled. I think was the biggest thing. With the lakefront being closed, that was a little bit tougher, but I found if you go down side streets you've never been down before, or through neighborhoods that you've never been through, it gave me a whole new perspective. It was something new to look at. It wasn't the same old where you just spaced out and tried to put in miles. I took lots of pictures and really enjoyed those runs. Still do.
Yeah. It's a great way, a very different way to see places.
It is. I've gotten used to wearing a mask now. I make that definitely a priority. I will pull it down every now and then, but out of respect for other runners and other people in the streets, I will wear a mask. And early morning, those runners they've got it down to an art. The faster runners, if they're coming towards you on a sidewalk, will pop in the street real quick. People are really good about distancing. So, I don't know what it's like too much after work, because I won't go running after work. But in the morning, it's like the runners they've adjusted the best, I think, out of everybody on the street. They've made the best of a not so good situation.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's definitely a kinship between runners, even if it's not someone you know.
Yeah, and there's that nod now that sometimes you get out on the lakefront trail or a good morning, and you'll hear that from a runner. just the acknowledgement of, yes, I see you, I know you're there. It's nice.
So if you could run anywhere, where would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been to Rome. One of my favorite places on the earth was Big Sur. I think, honestly, if I could do Boston someday, I think that would be amazing. It really, that's the Super Bowl of the running world. And, I'm not going to qualify. I barely qualify for I've slowed down over the years. And it's this fundraising is really, really, really serious for Boston. But I think that would be like the pinnacle of the running world to do that.
And under normal circumstances, obviously a lot of races have been canceled or postponed because of COVID. How often do you run in organized races?
I have, let's see, in normal circumstances, I probably do 10 to 12 events a year, mostly small things. The marathon, if I'm a participant, I'll do that, or coaching that. That's usually the longest, but at least a couple half marathons and a ton of 5Ks and 8Ks. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite. I'm really hoping we can do that one organized. I did do a virtual half marathon a couple weeks ago on my own that raised money for COVID relief, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but nothing is going to take the place of those organized races and running with friends. Definitely. I think Race to Wrigley is one of my favorites. Also, rock and roll, and I would say New Year's Day is one of my favorite races too. 5K.
I had a question, it just fell out of my head.
I know that feeling.
So how many marathons have you done, and how many Chicago?
I have done the Chicago Marathon since 2004 every year, either as a participant and since 2012 off and on as a coach. I count those as a marathon because technically as coaches you end up doing more than the 26.2 distance because you're constantly, you're picking up your runners and you're running with them, and you're also coaching other people along the way who need it. But it's probably between 23 and 24 total because I not Chicago marathons. So what is it? 17 Chicago marathons are coming up on 17 or 18, and then 20 to 25 others with some others that I've done on my own just for the torture.
Have you done any other international ones other than Rome?
I did Stockholm. Oh, wow. I went with a group of runners from all over the States through a group called Marathon Tours and Travel. And it's a great thing to do when you're single because you can travel and meet other people, other runners from all over the world. And I actually went twice. The first year, the race director introduced us to this woman who was an Olympic athlete. Back in the 70s, she was cross country champion for Sweden, and she would also run marathons, and she had won the women's division of the Stockholm Marathon a couple times. And we actually became friends. And so I went back the next year to run it again and to stay with her. And we still maintain a friendship. That was way back in 2007, I think. 2007, 2008 would have been those years. So I've got this extraordinary friend who's in her 70s, who's an accomplished athlete who really taught me a lot about endurance along the way and how an athlete thinks. And I don't do it all the time because I still have issues when I run, but to have her as a friend, that was an extraordinary gift that running gave to me.
Wow. Nice. So just some general questions about how you approach running. What do you like for energy? Do you do goos or Gatorade or anything like that?
I do the honey stingers. They're the little energy gels, and they taste better than goos, and they're not as messy. They also, I found last year, I used them as a coach for the runners and myself because you get so used to taking care of everybody else and you forget to pack stuff for you. And so I ended up eating these honey stingers out of this bag when I hit the wall, probably 6 hours into this event. And they just give you a really good punch.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need as many of them. They're easy to carry. I like Noon as an electrolyte tablet, so I'll put that in my water. It's not as sweet as Gatorade, so you may or may not have heard of the Gatorade baby that you get from drinking Gatorade because of the sugar. You don't get a Gatorade baby with Noon. You get the electrolytes without the, oh my God.
Right. And how about, what would you say to a new runner? Like, what's the essential equipment? What do you need to get?
Well, first and foremost, you need a good pair of shoes. And I will tell them that I haven't driven a car in probably 20 years since I live in the city and don't need one.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't drive a car without decent tires. And it's the same way I try to approach running. You need good shoes. You need to be fitted by a professional. So, if they want me to go with them, great. Let's go to Fleet Feet. Let's go to Running Away. And let's find you a pair of shoes that are going to work for you. So that would be number one. Number two, I think, would be a good hydration pack. If they're training for Chicago, it can either snow on marathon day, it can rain, it could be 100 degrees, which it has been. And so you need something to carry water. I want them to learn early on that they need to drink before they're thirsty and be hydrated. And that will solve a lot of their problems during an endurance training or during an now I can't speak, during an endurance event.
So, you personally, do you have a favorite type of shoe? Do you make changes?
I started off in Nikes. They were my shoe. They were Nike Pegasus, and I would have sworn by those. And then I got injured. I can't remember what year, 2005, I think, was a fairly serious injury. And it's because I walk, honey, normally. I walk on the tips of my toes or on the balls of my feet. And with running shoes, the shoes I was put in that originally worked for me, they were pulling my heel down, which led to injuries eventually. Mm-hmm. So I was going to quit running. It hurt too much. It was causing too many problems. And I discovered the 5 fingers, the Vibrams. And I learned how to run minimalist a little bit. And that changed my whole perspective. So I went to look at, you can't really wear those for an endurance event.
Right.
I've run maybe 15 to 16, maybe up to 18 miles in those, but I would never attempt a marathon in them. It just, you're even if you are a runner who's really good at running on the ball of your feet, your heel is going to eventually come down because you're tired. So I switched to a pair of racing flats that I loved, and I can't remember the name of those. I had them for about a year, and then they discontinued them, and Ultra had come out. So I swear by Ultras. They're shaped like your foot. There's a lot of room in the toe box because they're shaped like your foot. So when your feet swell, there's room for your feet to swell. They're very light. They're as close probably to minimalist as you can get without the 5 fingers. But they do protect your feet. They keep them warm in winter, and they're lighter for the summer. So I swear by those. I just bought a different pair of shoes this year. I bought the Swiss Cloud only because Fleet Feet was out of my Ultras and they couldn't tell me when they'd be in. And so I'm giving these a shot, and we'll see. They definitely don't feel as good as the Ultra, so I'm guessing I'll go right back.
Mm-hmm. So when you do your own runs, how far do you usually go?
Oh, that depends. When I'm training, I try to stick to the schedule as much as possible. But on my morning runs, especially during COVID, because I find that I'm living alone, I don't have any family nearby, and I've got 4 family members, a brother, a sister-in-law, and a couple cousins. And so the range of emotions I was feeling being separated from coworkers and friends. Mm-hmm. Some mornings it was a longer run, and I'd gone up to 3 or 4 miles on the weekends. I went up to 13, 7. So I just went with what my body was telling me. Mm-hmm. I kept running until it said, okay, I'm ready to stop. And it worked for a lot of reasons. In the morning, I kind of was limited. So I would maybe go for a mile run one morning, and the next morning I could get in 2 before work, 4 before work, depending on what time I got in. So what I try to do to keep that passion for running is not pressure myself for miles, because that can really lead to fatigue mentally, I think, as a runner. So when I'm not training for something specific, I just let myself run as long as I want to run.
Do you listen to music?
Once in a while. I got back into running with music when I did that virtual half marathon. I really needed something, and the music helped me get through that. That's a long way to go by yourself with no water stops and stuff. But when I was in my earlier running days, I used to run with music a lot. And then I became more of, I guess, a purist. It's safer, especially on the bike paths and running paths, to know what's going on around you. And I find that it's really quite interesting. When I was listening to music, I missed a lot of stuff, whether it's what conversations you kind of overhear along the path, cars or bikes coming up behind you. So, in the waves on the lake, I mean, that's a sound that's really kind of cool. So I tend not to use music, but once in a while it's a motivator. Definitely a motivator.
What do you like to listen to when you do?
It's an embarrassingly eclectic list of things from the Muppets, Bruce Springsteen, the Foo Fighters, you name it, it's on there. A lot of the titles do have to do with running, which is kind of funny, or alluding to distance. Like I've got Go the Distance by, I think it's from a Disney movie. I've got the Muppets, Moving Right Along, Born to Run. So, I mean, a lot of them are running related, sort of. But it's very eclectic. Some of them are inspirational songs. Some of them are the songs that make you want to cry, and just something for everything. I think my favorite is Feeling Groovy. And I usually tell our participants, if you are listening to music, when that gun goes off for you to start that starting line, make sure you're shuffled to Feeling Groovy, because it'll remind you to slow down. You move too fast. They seem to enjoy that.
Nice. Okay, let's see. So after a big race, marathon or even a half marathon, what's your recovery routine?
A marathon is definitely a week off of work. I can't eat right away, so I'm definitely treating myself to a burger, fries, a beer, and an eventual chocolate milkshake afterwards. The day after the marathon, the night of the marathon too, I try to find a place to eat where I have to walk there and walk back. In the same day, the day after the marathon, it's a 2-mile walk to the Webster Theater. And I will walk that 2 miles to the Webster Theater, watch a 2-hour movie, and walk home. So it's kind of like a treat. Just keeping moving is the basis of it. Not running for a week, and just going out and walking, letting my body recover, eating whatever I want for 36 hours. Enjoying not having a training schedule too is nice.
I've always felt like that's your little gift from the marathon gods.
Yes. Chocolate.
Yes.
Everything. I have some neighbors one time who took me out to dinner. They saw me get out of a cab, and they said, "Have you eaten yet?" And I said, "No." And they said, "We'll take you to Wild, which is right around the corner from me." And I said, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Yeah." Why? And I said, "Because you really have to be with people who love you a lot the first time you eat after a marathon." And they're like, well, we love you." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm holding you to that." And we get in there, and I ordered a salad, a big cheeseburger, fries, a beer. I had a chocolate shake of some sort. And I had devoured that all before the couple sitting next to us had even started their meal, and they had been there a while. And they were like, "Where are you putting all that?" And I said, all different places. So it's kind of embarrassing, but it's fun.
Let's see. who inspires you? Is there, an athlete, somebody, is there a quote, something out there that inspires you?
I think it started out, I was inspired by our patient honorees every year
Mhm.
because they're fighting the fight. And then I just, I'm still, I would say, inspired by my coaches when I'm a participant, Marie Gerald, she's gone through. But I think I've gotten to the point where I inspire myself now. And I think about the journey.
Mhm.
And it's a challenge on some days because I have to keep reminding myself that. And I do look at a lot of quotes. Quotes are something that I really enjoy. And one of my favorite quotes ever is, a marathon is a race between two people, the person you are and the person you are about to become. And every race is different for every person, but it's honestly made me a better person each time.
Hmm. What kind of questions have you heard from non-runners about running?
What are you going to do when your knees, give out? Is I think one of the biggest ones. And are you nuts is another one, and I mean, those are two of the biggest ones. And can you show me how to run? And, my answer to that is always yes. And then, they never follow up with that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's mostly about my knees. It's mostly about, well, can you eat anything you want because you run? And um, are you crazy and are you nuts? I think was the first thing I heard when I told my brother that I was going to run a marathon. I've also heard people have died doing that. And, that's been like perfect strangers if I've been wearing a marathon shirt. In fact, downtown one time, I went out for a run on my lunch hour and I was wearing a marathon shirt, and I stopped for a red light and there's this man standing next to me in a business suit smoking a cigarette, and he goes, "Marathon, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "People have died doing that." And I think, that's kind of like the running joke now. It's like, whenever, somebody says, "When's your next marathon?" A lot of people at work will ask that, and I'll say, "People have died doing that." Oh,
Oh, too funny.
yeah.
Let's see. So um, I think that covers everything I wanted to ask you. Is there anything else that you want to cover, that that you want to say about running or life or both?
I know it really changed my life because I set out in Chicago to become an actress, and that didn't quite work out. And so I did what a lot of actors do, which is get a steady job. And I work in a finance firm, and I love my coworkers dearly. I hit the 26-mile mark, or
Mm-hmm.
not 26-mile, 26-year mark back in December. And early on, before I had started running, I'm just so different than these other people. They're business focused.
Mm-hmm.
They're mostly extroverted, and I'm not saying there aren't any extroverted runners, but their mindset is different. And I was really longing to find someplace that I could fit in, something that I could do that could make a difference for myself as well as the world. And when I found running, that's what's happened. I found my niche, and it, also improved relations at work. I had something outside of work. I knew I was making a difference in others' lives. I made a difference in mine, confidence wise and fitness wise. And I would really encourage anybody who is thinking about it. Your thoughts, I think, are put there for a reason. And
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe that there's a higher power that has dreams for you that you would never imagine for yourself. And I didn't set out to be a marathon runner. I kind of thought running, who would do that? And so you just kind of go with those thoughts. If anybody would say, "Oh, I thought about running once," I would say, go for it, try it. If it's not for you, you can, quit. If you find it is for you, then you've opened up some amazing opportunities.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And it's been so nice to talk to you and to see you
Oh, thank
again.
you.
It's been
Same
so long.
here. It
And
has.
yeah, I miss going out and volunteering with the all teams and
Oh,
uh,
I do. I really miss that.
yeah. Well, it's, you know, like you said, running's brought a lot of wonderful people into my life. So very thankful for that.
Yeah. You know, these people have your back. When you need
Yeah.
something, they're going to be there.
Yep. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.